So I'm going to break down a couple of examples and explain how we process information in order to graph it. So the first says that, I don't know how to say this name, Noor drove from the Dead Sea up to Amman, and her altitude changed at a constant rate. When she began driving, her altitude was 400 meters below sea level. When she arrived in Amman, 2 hours later, her altitude was 1,000 meters above sea level. So what I'm seeing with our X value and our Y value is the first thing that I'm going to try to set. So the thing that we're changing, or the thing that is changing consistently, the independent variable, is the time, or hours. That's what you'd put on your Y or your X axis, while on your Y axis would go the altitude. It doesn't make sense to put your altitude on your Y axis because time is changing at a very consistent standard rate, like an hour's an hour. Your altitude is the variable that is definitely changing as a result of time going on. So now that I've defined my X and my Y value, I'm going to look at the two statements I've highlighted. So it says when she began driving, her altitude was at 400 meters below sea level. So thinking through this like a coordinate. When she began driving represents hour 0. So that would mean my X value is 0. At X value 0, her altitude was 400 meters below sea level. So at a time of 0, her altitude was -400. When you see a point that is 0, -400, that is your y-intercept, where your X value is 0. The next part I see is it says 2 hours later, her altitude was 1,000 meters above sea level. So we have 2 and 1,000. This is a coordinate. I don't see any zeros. It's just a point in time. 2 hours later, her altitude is 1,000. Your problems today will ask you to identify what the problem gives you. Yes, from this information, we could find slope. We could also find the x-intercept, but it's just asking you what the problem tells you. And what this problem is telling me is that it has a y-intercept of 0, -400, and a coordinate of 2 and 1,000.